Welcome to Dance Mogul Magazine. I appreciate you taking the time, sir.
No problem.
Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
My name is Ras Baraka. I'm a councilman here in the South Ward of Newark. Principal on leave of absence for Central High School in Newark, New Jersey. Been an educator for 22 years in Newark.
Okay. Can you give us a brief background on, your history here in Newark coming up?
Well, I grew up in the South Ward and around Clinton Avenue. Hung out on Avon Avenue most of the time. I went to Madison Avenue School, Clinton Place Junior High School, University High, all in the South Ward. Well, University was downtown first, and then, we moved up to what Old Clinton Place is. And, I grew up in this area, in this community, when it was a little different than the way it is now. Mm-hmm. But this whole Clinton Hill section is, most of my life has been spent here. Some of my best friends, some of my worst enemies live in this community, When I was on my way to college, my best friend was on his way to Annandale, to the correctional facility. So that's, I've had that dichotomous kind of relationship with the city for a long time. A lot of people that I know and grew up around here have not had the same opportunities in some instances that I have been able to have or enjoy. And because of that, I feel obligated to come. I always have obligated to come back to Newark and help more people be able to benefit from the things that I was able to benefit from.
As the history shows, Newark has had a rich history as far as culture, as far as the arts and things like that, whether it be dance, music. There's always been a culture here. Mm-hmm. What was that like during your time coming up? Because it seemed like it was like a fun time where everybody was having fun. Yeah, you had the ills of the community, but it seems like there was enough fun to balance that out. So whereas you probably don't even
my personal life and public in terms of what was going on in the community was a little different, but it's always the superstructure, and I say the superstructure, and that means music, the arts, the schools, all of the ideas that kids or young people grow up with, that they contend with every day, that help shape who they are and what they think and what they believe. During that time period, when I was a kid, the hip-hop industry or the music industry was a lot more vast in terms of the kind of music that was being put out. Whether the R&B music was different, we did have artists that were, more talking about street life and gangster life, but most of it was really party music. Mm-hmm. And dance music, more like break dance and pop locking. Movies like Breakin', B Street, Wild Style, all of that was about, young people trying to find a voice. Mm-hmm. And grow up and find a way out of poverty and, use what we had, our ability to dance, to sing, to draw as an opportunity to, make some money or create wealth for our community and our families. And that was probably like the centerpiece of what the hip-hop idea or movement was about at that time, and it changed somewhere and became more violent and more, degrading. Mm-hmm. And more self-destructive. But it took a while to get to that place, and it evolved. Before it even got there, it became more conscious-oriented. So a lot of the music was talking a lot more about who you were, self-respect, defending your community, socially conscious kind of music. So that was had a heavy impact on, I think, a lot of people. I mean, there was this whole campaign that Jesse Jackson was going around with saying, take off the gold chain and put on the gold brain, but Public Enemy and all of them did that by putting on African medallions, and the Zulu Nation and all of these rappers, Tribe Called Quest, was able to make a whole generation of kids discover Africa. Mm-hmm. And their relationship to it, and become more socially conscious through art and music and the ideas that are associated with it. So when people say that art and music don't have an impact on people's lives, then they are naive, and they don't understand the impact that it has on their life. I mean, why would people spend millions of dollars on commercials if a commercial didn't impact the way patterns of shopping or the way what people liked or disliked? I mean, all of those things are important. So we always have to be in control of the images and the ideas that we feed to our children in our community. And that happens not just through formal institutions like school or the library that people would expect, or your parents, It happens through media, through music, through art, through the things that they read, through the things that they see, through things that are advertised to them. Those things shape who they are and what they become.
As a child and, you know, going into your teens and as far as getting educated, were you always a high achiever, and how did you stay away from everything that you're talking about, like that transition? Because it's easy to get swept up in the transition, wanting to be a follower and be cool. Like, were you a high achiever?
Well, I didn't stay away from it, but you know, I mean, because you can't stay away from it. It's all around you. Like, if you grow up in this community, you just have to have alternative. You have to have support systems and alternative ideas and thoughts that help you weigh different things. And a lot of folks don't have that, and so you get these people talking about how they made it through all of this, and they thought this idea that they did it on their own, which is not true. Like, so there's always all kinds of other supports and individuals and people that involve themselves in your life that help you choose another path. And by the grace of God, when they're shooting on the block, you're not the one that gets shot. When people get arrested, you're not the one going to jail. You know, and that's I've been blessed in that capacity. But I also grew up in a household that was very socially conscious. You know, I had access to a lot of art and music and ideas that were not the kind of things that everybody else out here had access to or were listening to, which kind of shaped my childhood in terms of what I felt about myself, my community, what I believed, our relationship to the world was, music that I was able to listen to and have, and at the time not really understand or know the real impact that it would have until later on in my life. But all of those things helped to give me an opportunity to become somebody else. Because I hung out on Avon in 11th Street at the pool hall with everybody else, or Avon on 14th Street in front of Youssef Steak and Tape, with you know, the host of people that are up there. You know, just, you know, by the grace of God and my, you know, ability to use my brain, I've been able to avoid a lot of the things that some of my friends were not able to avoid. And you know, I went to university, high school. I didn't want to. I wanted to go to Shabazz. You know, my father made me take the test. I got accepted, and I went to university since the 7th grade. And then, you know, it turned out to be a good experience for me. It led me to Howard University, and I think at Howard is where I completely transformed and began to understand what it is that we're supposed to actually be doing, and what the purpose of education was for, and why I needed to come back to Newark and do the things that we need to do.
And when did you realize that you wanted to be an educator as far as?
Well, in college, you know, I always wanted to be a professor, like a college professor, because my dad was a professor, and I went, you know, I would go to Stony Brook and the schools that he taught at and be around that stuff, and I thought it was, you know, important. And I wanted to be a professor. When I went to Howard, you know, I listened to a speech by a man named Jawanza Kunjufu, countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys, and he talked about how African-American males begin to fall behind in school in the 5th grade, and you know, how our aggressiveness or our assertiveness or our activeness is always misread, and different kinds of things that you know, didn't enable us to have the same access to education and self-esteem that everybody else has. So I made it my business to come back and become an elementary school teacher. I wrote for the Source magazine for a few months in New York City, and then I just began to substitute while I was substituting in Newark, and I took finally took the test and became a teacher at Warren Street School. And I was a teacher for 10 years before I became an administrator.
Okay. I noticed you mentioned your father a lot, and I'm sorry for your loss. How important is the father figure in an African-American home nowadays?
I think, you know, family, period, is important for anybody. Like, to have a solid kind of support staff in your life, you know, a mother and a father, to provide balance, to help you begin to identify who you are, get self-identity, think about who you are, but who you are in relationship to the rest of the world, and what it is that you need to do or should be doing. So all of that is important, as well as the whole community. I think for the African American community, what's been more important is the idea of community, our community, because our families have always been under attack since we walked off of the plantation, right? So I think the thing that held us together in the South and prior to now is the strength of our community, our relationships to one another, the strength of the church, the strength of the institutions in our neighborhoods that helped people when they didn't have anything, that fed us when welfare wasn't around, you know, that took care of us when our parents couldn't become doctors or lawyers, right? So, you know, the kind of support staff that we had to have because the community was under direct attack. I think now a lot of that has been weakened. The family is weakened, but so are the institutions in our community have grown weaker in terms of having guidance and control over our lives as a community and being able to provide us with information and with ideas and with role models to help push our community forward. And it doesn't help that you know, the males in our community have been completely emaciated, right? So, you know, there's a whole bunch of them either in jail or, you know, dying at early ages or moving away from their families in terms of their children don't have access to them or who they are or what they're becoming or to be able to see them as something to look up to. So they look up to these images on TV, in rap, and, you know, in the media. They latch onto these images and to images in the street.
Okay. And my final question for you is, it doesn't matter what title you hold. At the end of the day, you're a public servant. So my question to you is, as a public servant, how do you give the people hope, and how do you help them to keep it so that they don't, you know, lose hope in themselves, in their communities, and just in the system in general? How do you keep them up, keep their spirits up to where people are not going crazy?
Well, people have to see that you care about their condition and that you're willing to be where they are, to fight with them, to move forward. And we need small victories, right? So every little victory gets us closer to winning the war, and we have to have small victories in our community, whether it's victories over beginning to rebuild certain blocks, putting retail back you know, in these communities, whether it's victories in terms of getting control of our school system again and turning out young people that are brilliant and successful in our community, victories in reducing the number of us that go to jail, you know, over and over again. They need to see that there's some light at the end of the tunnel, that there's some hope. And they need to see images of us being successful. And even if it's not the success that people hope for and imagine, they need to see people striving for that and moving towards that direction in large numbers. Like, so they need to see groups of us doing this. A lot of times people become successful and they move away from the community, or those that stay here spend their time trying to demean the other people that have not been able to acquire the things that they've been able to acquire, as opposed to helping the community transform itself into something positive. And I think small steps and small victories gives people hope and the idea that, you know, we can win.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I think that you even agreeing to sit down with me, not knowing me from a can of paint, is just showing you right then and there the type of person that you are, and that you're willing to get on the front line from a grassroots level and even talk, because, you know, a lot of times when someone like in your position, you can't even talk to people, and it's like, oh, you know, I got to make a million phone calls just to get an answer. So I appreciate you even sitting down and taking the time, because time is very valuable, and I know you have things to do. You know, we have to fix this community. Whether you're in office or not, you're still out here trying to fix this community. It looks like it's a nonstop battle for you. So I just want to say I recognize it, and I appreciate it as a young man here from Newark, New Jersey.
Thank you, brother. Congratulations on what you're doing, man. I like it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.